Chapter 3. Swami's grandmother. In the ill-ventilated dark passage between the front hall and the dining room, Swaminathan's grandmother lived with all her belongings, which consisted of an elaborate bed made of 5 carpets, 3 bed sheets, and 5 pillows, a square box made of jute fiber, and a small wooden box containing copper coins, cardamoms, cloves, and areca nut.
After the night meal, with his head on his granny's lap, nestling close to her, Swaminathan felt very snug and safe in the faint atmosphere of cardamom and cloves. "Oh, Granny!" he cried ecstatically, "you don't know what a great fellow Rajam is."
He told her the story of the first enmity between Rajam and money and the subsequent friendship. "You know, he has a real police dress," said Swaminathan. "Is it?"
"What does he want a police dress for?" asked Granny. "His father is the police superintendent. He is the master of every policeman here."
Granny was impressed. She said that it must be a tremendous office indeed. She then recounted the days when her husband, Swaminathan's grandfather, was a powerful sub-magistrate, in which office he made the police force tremble before him, and the fiercest dacoits of the place flee.
Swaminathan waited impatiently for her to finish the story. But she went on, rambled, confused, mixed up various incidents that took place at different times. "That will do, Granny," he said ungraciously.
"Let me tell you something about Rajam. Do you know how many marks he gets in arithmetic?" "He gets all the marks, does he, child?" asked Granny.
"No, silly. He gets 90 marks out of 100. Good."
"But you must also try and get marks like him. You know, Swami, your grandfather used to frighten the examiners with his answers sometimes.
When he answered a question, he did it in a tenth of the time that others took to do it. And then, his answers would be so powerful that his teachers would give him 200 marks sometimes. When he passed his FA, he got such a big medal.
I wore it as a pendant for years still. When did I remove it?" "Yes, when your aunt was born." "No, it wasn't your aunt.
It was when your father was born. I remember on the 10th day of confinement." No.
I was right. It was when your aunt was born. Where is that medal now?"
"I gave it away to your aunt, and she melted it and made 4 bangles out of it." "The fool! And such flimsy bangles too."
"I have always maintained that she is the worst fool in our family." "Oh, enough, Granny. You go on bothering about old unnecessary stories."
"Won't you listen to Rajam?" "Yes, dear, yes. Granny, when Rajam was a small boy, he killed a tiger."
"Indeed. The brave little boy. You are saying it just to please me."
"You don't believe it." Swaminathan started the story enthusiastically. Rajam's father was camping in a forest. He had his son with him.
2 tigers came upon them suddenly, one knocking down the father from behind. The other began chasing Rajam, who took shelter behind a bush and shot it dead with his gun.
"Granny, are you asleep?" Swaminathan asked at the end of the story. "No, dear, I am listening."
"Let me see. How many tigers came upon how many?" "About 2 tigers on Rajam," said Granny.
Swaminathan became indignant at his grandmother's inaccuracy. "Here I am going hoarse telling you important things and you fall asleep and imagine all sorts of nonsense. I am not going to tell you anything more."
"I know why you are so indifferent. You hate Rajam." No, he is a lovely little boy," Granny said with conviction, though she had never seen Rajam.
Swaminathan was pleased. Next moment a new doubt assailed him. "Granny, probably you don't believe the tiger incident."
"Oh, I believe every word of it," Granny said soothingly. Swaminathan was pleased, but added as a warning, he would shoot anyone that called him a liar. Granny expressed her approval of this attitude and then begged leave to start the story of Harishchandra, who, just to be true to his word, lost his throne, wife, and child, and got them all back in the end.
She was halfway through it when Swaminathan's rhythmic snoring punctuated her narration, and she lay down to sleep. Saturday afternoon. Since Saturday and Sunday came so rarely, to Swaminathan it seemed absurd to waste at home, gossiping with Granny and mother or doing sums. It was his father's definite orders that Swaminathan should not start loafing in the afternoon and that he should stay at home and do school work. But this order was seldom obeyed.
Swaminathan sat impatiently in his study, trying to wrest the meaning out of a poem in his English reader.
His father stood before the mirror, winding a turban round his head. He had put on his silk coat. Now only his spectacles remained.
Swaminathan watched his progress keenly. Even the spectacles were on. All that now remained was the watch.
Swaminathan felt glad. This was the last item, and after that father would leave for the court. Mother came in with a tumbler of water in one hand and a plate of betel leaves and nuts in the other.
Frank drank the water and held out his hand. She gave him a little areca nut and half a dozen neatly rolled betel leaves. He put them all into his mouth, chewing them with great contentment.
Swaminathan read at the top of his voice the poem about a woolly sheep. His father fussed about a little for his tiny silver snuff box and the spotted kerchief, which was the most unwashed thing in that house. He hooked his umbrella on his arm.
This was really the last signal for starting. Swaminathan had almost closed the book and risen. His father had almost gone out of the room.
But Swaminathan stamped his foot under the table. Mother stopped father and said, "By the way, I want some change. The tailor is coming today.
He has been pestering me for the last 4 days. Ask him to come tomorrow," father said. Mother was insistent.
Father returned to his bureau, searched for the keys, opened it, took out a purse, and gave her the change. "I don't know how I am going to manage things for the rest of the month," he said, peering into the purse. He locked the bureau and adjusted his turban before the mirror.
He took a heavy pinch of snuff and, wiping his nose with his kerchief, walked out. Swaminathan heaved a sigh of relief. "Bolt the door," came father's voice from the street door.
Swaminathan heard the clicking of the bolts. He sat at the window, watched his father turn the corner, and then left his post. His mother was in the kitchen giving instructions to the cook about the afternoon coffee.
Granny was sitting up in her bed. "Come here, boy," she cried as soon as she saw him. "I can't."
"No time now. Please. I will give you 3 pies, she cried.
Swaminathan ignored the offer and dashed away. "Where are you going?" Mother asked.
"I have got to go," Swaminathan said with a serious face. "Are you going to loaf about in the sun?" "Certainly not," he replied curtly.
"Wander about recklessly and catch fever?" "No, Mother, I am not going to wander about." "Has your father not asked you to stay at home on holidays?"
"Yes, but my drawing master has asked me to see him. I suppose even then I should not go." He added bitterly, "If I fail in the drawing examination, I think you will be pleased."
Swaminathan ran down Grove Street, turned to his right, threaded his way through Abu Lane, stood before a low-roofed, dingy house, and gave a low whistle. He waited for a second and repeated it. The door chain clanked, the door opened a little, and Mani's head appeared and said, "Fool.
"My aunt is here, don't come in. Go away and wait for me there." Swaminathan moved away and waited under a tree.
The sun was beating down fiercely. The street was almost deserted. A donkey was standing near a gutter, patiently watching its sharp shadow.
A cow was munching a broad, green, plantain leaf. Presently Mani sneaked out of his house. Rajam's father lived in Lawley Extension, named after the mighty engineer Sir Frederick Lawley, who was at one time the superintending engineer for Malgudi Circle, which consisted of about 50 neat bungalows, mostly occupied by government officials.
The trunk road to Trichinopoly passed a few yards in front of these houses. Swaminathan and Mani were nervously walking up the short drive leading to Rajam's house. A policeman in uniform cried to them to stop and came running towards them.
Swaminathan felt like turning and fleeing. He appealed to Mani to speak to the policeman. The policeman asked what they were doing there.
Mani said in a tone in which overdone carelessness was a trifle obvious, "If Rajam is in the house, we are here to see him. He asked us to come." The policeman at once became astonishingly amiable and took them along to Rajam's room.
To Mani and Swaminathan the room looked large. There were chairs in it, actually chairs, and a good big table with Rajam's books arranged neatly on it. What impressed them most was a timepiece on the table.
Such a young fellow to own a timepiece. His father seemed to be an extraordinary man. Presently Rajam entered.
He had known that his friends were waiting for him, but he liked to keep them waiting for a few minutes, because he had seen his father doing it. So he stood for a few minutes in the adjoining room, biting his nails. When he could keep away no longer, he burst in upon his friends.
"Sit down, boys, sit down," he cried when he saw them standing. In a few minutes they were chatting about odds and ends, discussing their teachers and schoolmates, their parents, toys, and games. Rajam took them to a cupboard and threw it open.
They beheld astounding things in it: miniature trains and motors, mechanical marvels, and a magic lantern with slides, a good many large picture books, and 100 other things. What interested Mani most was a grim air gun that stood in a corner. Rajam gave them permission to handle anything they pleased.
In a short while Swaminathan was running an engine all over the room. Mani was shooting arrow after arrow from a bow, at the opposite wall. When he tired of it, he took up the gun and devastated the furniture around with lead balls.
"Are you fellows, any of you, hungry?" Rajam asked. "No," they said half-heartedly.
"Hey!" Rajam cried. A policeman entered. "Go and ask the cook to bring some coffee and tiffin for 3.
The ease and authority with which he addressed the policeman filled his friends with wonder and admiration. The cook entered with a big plate full of eatables. He set down the plate on the table.
Rajam felt that he must display his authority. "Remove it from the table, you," he roared at the cook. The cook removed it and placed it on a chair.
"You dirty ass, take it away, don't put it there." "Where am I to put it, Raju?" asked the cook. Rajam burst out, "You rascal, you scoundrel, you talk back to me?"
The cook made a wry face and muttered something. "Put it on the table," Rajam commanded. The cook obeyed, mumbling, "If you are rude, I am going to tell your mother."
"Go and tell her, I don't care," Rajam retorted. He peered into a cup and cursed the cook for bringing it so dirty. The cook looked up for a moment, quietly lifted the plate, and saying, "Come and eat in the kitchen if you want food," went away with it.
This was a great disappointment to Swaminathan and Mani, who were waiting with watering mouths. To Rajam it was a terrible moment. To be outdone by his servant before his friends.
He sat still for a few minutes and then said with a forced laugh, "The scoundrel, that cook is a buffoon. Wait a minute." He went out.
After a while he returned, carrying the plate himself. His friends were a bit astonished at this sign of defeat. Obviously he could not subdue the cook.
Swaminathan puzzled his head to find out why Rajam did not shoot the cook dead, and Mani wanted to ask if he could be allowed to have his own way with the cook for a few minutes. But Rajam set their minds at rest by explaining to them, "I had to bring this myself. I went in and gave the cook such an kick for his impertinence that he is lying unconscious in the kitchen."